and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. Joining us live from Las Vegas, you will see him near the start-finish line at tomorrow's race. It's Brian Twining. Understand that Brian is doing this from a hotel room. So we're crossing our fingers and hoping this video quality / audio quality that seems to be pretty good so far rides with us. So if we have little bumps in the road, be patient. But Brian Twining, how's it going?
Oh man, it's going fantastic, man. Like as when I got here on Friday, I went and I checked out the truck race. Today I spent all day at the sports book gambling my ass away, and then tomorrow I will be at the racetrack bright and early, probably at around 8:00, going down to the pits and checking out the cars and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty excited.
That's friggin' awesome. Yeah, make sure you're following Brian on Twitter. I'm sure he'll be sharing out some photos from the track and the race and all that good stuff, as well as obviously any thoughts or anything else there. And it's just a general good follow anyways. So so we are here. We got qualifying in the books. We got everything ready to roll. I am not wanting that. We're going to dive into DraftKings obviously first, and we'll update some betting lines, talk about any other official bets, update our card, all that stuff. If you're getting value out of this content, if you're enjoying what we're doing, make sure you smash that thumbs up. Let us know down in the comments your favorite driver sub 9K. Who are you looking at? Where are you looking to find somebody for your DFS lineups? I am pulling up our results from last week just to keep everything ever so crystal clear. I don't think it's that one. I think it is. Let's see this one. No, you didn't like Bubba.
No, not it.
Must be. And he actually worked out for me. It's okay. It's not that one. It's the middle one. I wish on DraftKings I could label these somehow. I believe this is it. So, that I think is our lineup from last week. Does that look right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we had some good stuff. We had Stenhouse, Almirola, and Kurt Busch rather. Were really good. Kevin Harvick was really good. William Byron crashing sunk this lineup, but it was doing some work when he was on the track running really well. And Ross Chastain also had some issues and ended up kind of falling to the back, which kind of sank our lineup. So we didn't end up cashing like we wanted to do.
But if you look at that lineup right there, Chastain and Byron, both of those guys basically crashing out of the race. Mm-hmm. Had Byron not crashed out, we're looking at a potential pretty decent payday here. I mean, when you look at the other four guys, 40 or above and 60 for each of the other three, like that's
and he was running near the front looking really good before the wreck. So really frustrating end to his day. But overall, really, I feel like we're getting on the right track. I feel like we're getting on the right plays. And kind of all that stuff. So let's dive into it. Let's talk the elite options. Kyle Larson at the top once again, 11-3. Feels like he's going to be really popular and for the right reasons. I think he's an absolute smash this week, especially if you can fit him in salary wise. Starting second, gonna lead a fuck ton of laps.
I just don't even know.
He could get in the front and just go. The thing that we missed last week, and the thing I think if we had a little more Tyler Reddick in our core and a little more Tyler Reddick in our lineups, I think would have felt better. And we're both like the number in terms of his outright market, in terms of the DK prices.
Yeah, it felt aggressive.
Yeah, it felt aggressive, but at the end of the day, he was running in the front almost the whole way and had a very real shot to win the race. So, but yeah, I feel like Kyle Larson could be a good way to go. Obviously, could dominate from the jump. Chase Elliott, I feel like is going to go a little under-owned just because he is basic, 300 less. Could be a nice pivot if you want to get off Larson, but that's a very dangerous proposition.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a good Chase Elliott this week. I mean,
Me
I'm
too.
really excited to see what happens after last weekend between
Yeah.
him and Kyle Larson. But I mean, speaking from a pure DK perspective, I would much rather go all the way down to Byron at 9,800 rather than going with Elliott at 11K. Just knowing what Byron's been on the track. Yeah, the results haven't been there, but in terms of track speed and just driving while still on the track, he's been the better of the two. So I think he's way better value, especially starting.
Yeah,
14.
I think he's a tremendous value. Obviously, I bet him outright 13-1. He's still, between 10 and 12, depending on where you look. I'm still happy to take that. Obviously, we'll dive into the rest of our betting cards here in a bit. But I think that play makes a ton of sense. I think other than that, I'm not really, I'm not really here for Logano, although his numbers at this track are pretty solid. I feel like either you go up and get into the Elliott Larson group, or you go down and save yourself some coin. The other, I think, really popular driver that's going to be a borderline must play is Kyle Busch, starting 37th. He's 10-2. He's going to, I think he has a very real chance to still win this race, even starting where he is. Could be a guy that moves up, gets you a top 5. Obviously, the differential maybe even leads a few laps towards the third stage. Feel really good about that. So yeah, he's another guy that I think will garner a lot of ownership, but for the right reasons.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what he did last week. He was down I think it was something like 4 laps behind the leader, and he wound up on the lead lap and actually cashing in a matchup against Chase Elliott, who wound up crashing. So we've seen Kyle Busch start from the rear before and work his way back up. The thing that's interesting, though, for him is that the car that he'll be driving Sunday from the back is actually a Denny Hamlin backup vehicle. So we'll see what kind of adjustments they have to make, because each driver has their own specific setups that they like to run.
Yeah. Luckily they have some time to kind of make those tweaks, but yeah, it is less than ideal for sure. Speaking of Hamlin, starting 8th, 10K, any interest there?
I mean, every week Hamlin, I think he's a good value to win races. Like this week, he's 12-1 again. He's been shown it for the last few years to be one of the best drivers. But just from what we've seen of late, it's just hard to move off of Kyle Larson. I mean, dude has just been unbelievably good everywhere we go, especially at these 1.5s.
Yeah, if you're going to do some tournament lineups and you want to pivot from Larson to Hamlin, I think you'll definitely differentiate yourself. How effective it'll actually be will to be determined, but I don't think it's crazy to do. Then once again, Tyler Reddick popping up a little bit higher than maybe you expect, starting 7th, 9,300. I think is poised for another strong race, and could be a nice pairing with Kyle Larson as kind of your potential lap leader, but try and finish near that top 5 and have a really, really solid day.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind putting both of them in there, just because, at this specific track, kind of like Auto Club last week, historically, I know we're in new cars here, but the winner of this race is normally starting from the top 5 rows of the grid. Yeah. So you have both of these guys. They both run really fast at these kinds of tracks, and if they both maintain their position, you're looking at 40 plus points in terms of looking at fastest laps led, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100% on board. Kurt Busch, I don't love him from a obviously I bet against him in a matchup. I don't think he gets, wins the race or gets in the top 5, but starting 31st gives you a good opportunity to rack up some DK points. And in terms of having a really high ceiling, could obviously run really well. And although his history at this track isn't quite the same as his brother's, but it's still really solid. And starting 31st, you could find find yourself gaining a lot of DK points.
Yeah, I mean, from that position, all you're looking for is maybe 10 movement points from inside the top 20. I know that's not necessarily what you're looking for 8,900, but he's the kind of driver that could potentially make that into a top 10. So
yeah. Rolling down, I liked Austin Dillon coming in, and from the betting market, I like him a lot. But starting 10th, I don't know if I can get there even at his $8K price.
yeah, it's hard to get with him because that's kind of his ceiling, right? I mean, we're looking at him to top 10, not as a potential top 5, top 3 finisher. So you're kind of already starting at where you want him to be, and so the only way he's really going to go is down. So for me, he's an avoid.
Speaking of going down, let's look at some options. Cole Custer starting 24th at 6,700 always jumps out to me. Daniel Suarez at 7K looked really good last week. I think is ready to take a huge step forward. Obviously, we like Stenhouse, but more from a betting window perspective than starting 9th. Eric Jones starting 23rd. Don't hate that at 73. Although Ross Chastain 18th. Feel a little safer with him, although that didn't necessarily work out. Daniel Hemrick, starting 16th, which is not ideal.
But 5,800, man.
5,800 looked really good
right.
in the Xfinity race. We talked about it last week with Cole Custer, who ended up finishing 11th. Having a little comfort on the track, even if it's not exactly the same setup in the same car, I think is good. Obviously a lot of time, the more time you could spend on the track, kind of get an eye of where you need to be going, that kind of stuff. Makes a lot of sense. So Hemrick at below 6K, even though he's starting 16th, I think could make some sense especially if you want to dabble in the Larson and the other high price guys.
Yeah, no, Hemrick this weekend has looked pretty good. I mean, he was really close to cracking that top 10 in qualifying. So he's already fairly comfortable in the Cup Series cars. He's looked like the better colleague racing driver through the first 2 races. And at that price, like that's a pretty damn good value there.
Yeah, I mean, you could double up with the colleague guys too. 6,100. Justin Haley started 28th, but yeah, I mean, Hemrick has looked much more comfortable and has been more productive for sure.
I'm really sad about Stenhouse Jr. though qualifying where he did, because it ruins his DK DFS value for me.
Yep. And the betting odds kind of reflect it. Obviously, there's a little more wiggle room just because of who he is, but still shortens that potential. Any other names down here that I like Bubba once again. I know he's starting 17th, so I think he's more of kind of a top 10, 12 guy, but 6,300 could make some sense again.
Yeah, again, like I just haven't seen it from him at these types of tracks. I mean, like last week he finished 19th, and that's kind of like where he's traditionally been at these kinds of races. So it's hard to kind of peg him to be somebody that's going to up his level and get those placement points that you need from that starting position.
Yeah. And when you're going from 34th, it's a lot easier to get to him.
Yes.
If you're going from, the middle of the pack.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that covers it. If there's specific drivers you guys want our feedback in, let us know down in the comments. I can give you some ideas on ownership, on points expected, on that kind of stuff. But Brian, I think it's time to build a lineup, and I'll give you the tea. Where are we starting? Who do you want to make sure we get in our lineup?
I'm sick of missing out on this, but you got to go with Larson, man. Like,
okay.
It's just it's sickening, but
yeah, I mean it is. So I guess the question is, do we double up with the Kyles? And if we do, how do we save some ownership later?
Yeah.
Or do we punt Kyle Busch and look
well,
at
okay. I think that begs the question: are we in a big field tournament?
Yeah, I think we should do this as a tournament lineup. Obviously, in cash, if you just double up with the Kyles and go with the little bit safer options, that's probably fine. I am going to put in. I'm gonna put in. Let's put in William Byron.
Beautiful. That's exactly who I was going to go to next. Just in terms of driving this year, removing the results, I feel like William Byron has probably been like the 3rd or 4th best driver in general on the track this year.
Yeah, he's looked great. Where do you
now
want to go now?
we're gonna start digging into some salary savings.
Yeah, now we got to start saving some money if we can. There's a few names down here I'd be very happy to get to.
I mean, I wouldn't mind taking a gander and going back to Almirola at 20th for
Love it.
7,800.
Love it. Love it. You never have to twist my arm to grab some Eric Almirola. I will be very, very, very happy to do that. Okay, so we need to get even lower. Cole Custer at 67 is going to be my pick. I like him a lot. I think starting 24th, I think this guy is a very legit option of getting a top 10. Looked really good last week. I think he can perform well again this week, and at 6,700 you can find some value for sure.
Yeah, Custer's been pretty good the previous two races. I mean, we talked about him. Why don't we save the salary and go with Hemrick at 16th? It's not the most ideal starting position, but for that cost, you're really just hoping to mitigate loss here and hoping he just completes the entirety of the race. Even if he finishes a few laps down, you get 20 points out of him. It's worth your money.
Yeah, I think he could flirt with a between 10 and 15 finish, and we're sub 6K, I think it's a good gamble. So we could go up a little bit, but I don't really love these options. I think where it gets interesting and it gives, obviously we're going to save some salary, and that's not always a bad thing, is Eric Jones at 23rd or Chris Buescher starting 27th at 6,500. I know we have a lot more, and we could always tweak it if we want to, remove Custer, but I think saving a couple grand for
especially
GPP,
in a tournament lineup.
Yeah. I think is the move. So, and we, obviously going later, we could look at replacing, William Byron with Kyle Busch, but once again, I would still leave, 1,700 on the table. But we both really like Byron. I think we should just roll with this. Are you good with this lineup?
Yeah, no, I especially love the top. I mean,
yeah,
like I said, Larson is just out of this world. It's becoming comical at this point.
Have Larson dominate the race, win. William Byron top 5, top 3 kind of area. Custer, Almirola, Buescher flirt with top 10 ish. Maybe we even get Hemrick in there, and we'll be looking real, real nice. Okay, I will save that. I will enter it in a contest, and we can review it next week. Let's flip over and talk some betting odds. I'm going to use DraftKings and FanDuel just because Odds Checker wasn't giving me all the odds. Let me see where we're at. Let's see if it's starting to populate a little bit more, but let's take a look at here just to get an idea of where some of these books are at, and then we can dive in as we get a little bit closer. Let me blow this up a little bit. How's that on your end? You can see that pretty good?
Yep.
Cool. Larson is your betting favorite. I got him at 5-1. There was actually 6-1 odds on him at a couple books when it first came out. Obviously, his number has been crushed. I wouldn't bet it at 350. I mean, you could twist my arm at 4-1, but knowing there was a 5 and even a 6, it really makes it hard for me to get to. You got Elliott, Logano, Blaney. I think Byron at 12-1 of the current numbers is where I would start my card.
Well, yeah, especially considering the movement that we've seen on actual foot traffic sports books. I mean, with me being in Vegas, I saw the change from this morning till after practice and qualifying. You're looking at it right there. It opened at 12-1 this morning. It's down to 7 immediately.
Yeah, it's
at
wild.
BetMGM. It got heavy money on them.
Yep. And I don't know, should we feel good about having that ticket, or should we be worried? Because, I do sometimes, the gambler in me is well, if everyone's on this thing, then maybe it's not the thing to be on. But maybe that's more of the right people are on it, so they're adjusting their lines accordingly.
Well, I do know that so the sports books like took it off the board while they were doing the qualifying, and they
Sure.
reopened a little bit shorter than what they had posted, and
Yeah.
then they had heavy money. Like I'm pretty sure when Byron's was initially reposted, he was at 8.5 or 8.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not that drastic of a movement, but just the books know like, hey, he looks a lot better than that 12-1 or 11-1 number we originally had him posted, which is why going to DraftKings if that's available to you is the way to go because they obviously haven't adjusted.
Yeah. Would you bet it at 8 or 7.5?
Honestly,
I think I need double digits to bet it.
I was just gonna say I would almost prefer to just go a little bit heavier on Larson and then go further down the board with longer shots.
And we can, we'll talk placings. I think top 3, top 5, top 10 might be a better way to attack Byron because those numbers haven't been adjusted quite as aggressively. Your boy Denny Hamlin, 14 is pretty good number across the board. There's Tyler Reddick again at a very low number. I liked, like I said last week, I really want to get a piece of him somehow, but like, I bet numbers, not drivers, and
Yep.
at that number, I just can't do it. Let's roll Christopher Bell. Or did you have something?
No, I was just gonna say about the Tyler Reddick thing. It's just kind of funny because it's like you're tailing the historical races at this particular track by this one driver when at other tracks he's not good. I mean, it falls in line with Bubba with what he did at Daytona. I mean, he finished second, and I wasn't on the number. You could have had him at like plus 300 to top 3 if you just follow his data. So I mean, you're kind of weighing.
So you mentioned the winner typically comes out of the first 5 rows.
Yeah, so it's the top 10 cars. So it's whoever qualifies like within the top 10.
So Kyle Busch at 2022 might be a little tempting, and obviously things happen until they don't. But like it starting 37th, I don't know if I could quite get there.
It's just really hard to move up in the field in a 1.5 mile type race.
Yeah. As we roll down, Austin Dillon is somebody that's still interesting to me. Where is he starting? I had the thing open here.
I think he's 8th, right?
Yeah, so he's starting in the top 10. I think he is somebody that if you're looking to get, where is Mr. Dillon? Let's go by starting position. That makes it easier. Yeah, he's starting 10th, so he's just inside the top 10. I like him for this track. I have an Austin Dillon versus Kurt Busch head-to-head that I like, and I'm happy to get it. I got it at minus 105. I think it's minus 120, depending on where you look. But, if you can get that 40 to 1, I think would be fun to get. And then, Brian, we've both gotten this. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 50 to 1 on the outright market. I love him this week, starting 9th. I kind of want to get some placing action too, just to like.
But you missed the boat on that, like.
Right, and it's also
numbers were early for him.
It's also Ricky Stenhouse, right?
So yeah, exactly.
Like he's an all or nothing Ricky Bobby kind of driver, and I'd hate to double down and then end up missing not only my outright but other bets as well. So that's probably a name to avoid.
I mean, I will say, like, obviously the bookmakers have adjusted because earlier in the week we talked about it, and we got him at a top 10 at plus 190, and that's down to like plus 120, plus 110, depending on where you look. So, I mean, they're starting to come around on what he's doing this year, and that has a lot to do with the fact that JTG is no longer running 2 vehicles, and all of their assets are allocated towards his car.
Yep. Let's switch over and talk some finishing position. Obviously, I'll fire up DraftKings. We can look on FanDuel as well, as they have better numbers. So it's weird. So DraftKings has some better outright numbers, but when they get to their placings, they really chop those numbers. So if you have access to both, make sure you're shopping it because there is value to be found. Depending on where you look. So obviously, we have our outrights here. We'll look at top 3s, top 5s. I really like William Byron. I was doing a little research before the race, or before the Xfinity race, I guess. when we were, and I was looking. William Byron is plus 320. Now it's plus 260. That number, like, wait till I tell you some of the stuff that I was looking at. So it is getting chopped. I think I would still take it there. If you can get 2.5 to 1 for a top 3 finish, I think Byron is a much safer option than Stenhouse.
Oh, yes.
So I don't mind looking at, like I said, Brian and I, if you, the 7 to 1 number is not great, 6 to 1 number, but I think if you can get plus 250, plus 260 for a top 3, I think there's value there, and you could find yourself getting to a good spot. Anything else in the top 3 market? Obviously, FanDuel doesn't have a top 5, which is kind of strange. But
man, the sports books here, the actual foot traffic sports books, they don't even do placements. They have like a smattering of them. So if you have access to DK or FanDuel, take advantage of it, because the market is not very good at other places.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're just hard to cap, right? So the books don't want to take that risk. The
Christopher Bell thing, I think he's the most dynamic racer this weekend, just because he opened at 30 to 1 to win the race, underneath 20 now after qualifying on the pole. You see his top 3 number plummeted down to 3 to 1. Like, he's another guy. He hasn't finished either of the first 2 races, just like William Byron, but when he's been on track, he's been really good.
Yep. Yeah, no, and that is kind of why we do the show the way we do, because some weeks there's going to be better odds, right? Like some weeks they're going to have qualifying, maybe their driver's starting towards the back, maybe they don't qualify quite as well, and then we get a better number. But for most of these guys, we're going to get better numbers early, so you want to get on it as early as possible.
Yep.
Obviously, having access to multiple books helps with that, so that's all stuff to think about. Let's look at top 10 market, because I think we're going to find more value there. There's a few names I want to get into, and I'll pull up, where is our betting card? Because we have some nice bets on there, that I think, where is it? Here we go. So I got Austin Dillon at plus, basically we got Austin Dillon at plus 100. He is now minus 125. I got Tyler Reddick at plus 130 to top 5. He is now minus 110.
Oh man.
So like that's how you get some value. But if we're looking at the top 10 market now, Brian, let's look at FanDuel, because their numbers are just a little bit better. Obviously, you can, go where you can find value. I don't think we're buying any of these, but Austin Cindric look good once again to top 10 at plus value. I don't hate that. Ricky Stenhouse plus 190 to top 10. I like that. And then this range, once again, the plus 250-ish range for Almirola, Busher, and Cole Custer all are really, really compelling. And then Daniel Hemrick plus 360 to top 10. Once again, we were talking starting 15th, looked really good, looked comfortable on the track today. I think is somebody that I could get to as well.
Yeah, I almost feel like FanDuel needs to get somebody on top of their odds here, because, for instance, like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is still posted at plus 190 when everywhere else that I've seen a top 10 number, it's gone way down.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hemrick at over 3 to 1 to top 10. Like we said, that experience in racing tonight is going to go a long way in tomorrow's race, even though the vehicles are a lot different. And, if we see another chaotic race again tomorrow with them trying to still learn the track in the new cars, who knows how many cars finish on the lead lap. And if he avoids accidents, he could just be up there by default.
Yep. I think that's a great call. Everything else down here in kind of the top 10 market is just not something I want to get to, and just not something I'm going to be betting. So no point in digging through that. I was going to see what kind of matchups we got. Let's flip over. We got groups. Nope, no matchups here. Let's go to the featured one. So Austin Dillon versus Kurt Busch. So like I said, I got this at minus 105. I know it was plus money when when the odds first came out. Now it's minus 130, plus 100 here. So that's something to think about. Kyle Busch minus 105 versus Joey Logano. I know he's starting way in the back, but this could be a way to bet. If you like Kyle Busch this weekend, you think he has a chance to perform really well. You could find some value. Kyle Larson, I know we love him, but Chase Elliott at plus 125, like stuff happens on the track.
Yep.
Cars crash out. Getting plus money on two drivers that are very, very
Exactly.
comparable, I think is worth taking a shot on.
And don't forget about what happened last week either. So Chase Elliott's going to be out to try to one up Kyle Larson, whether that's wrecking him on purpose or the team even trying to avoid further rift within the Hendrick garage, telling Kyle Larson in F1 style, like, hey, let your teammate go ahead of you. So at that number in a driver matchup that should basically be even money on either side, you almost have to bet that.
Yeah, I think that's really good value. I'm going to add this here. I'm taking William Byron at minus 115. I know we like Tyler Reddick,
but I was going to say that. Yeah, I like Byron's side on that. I just wish the juice wasn't so heavy on those though.
Yep, but the books got to make their money, Brian, and unfortunately we have to pay the VIG. So we'll set that up. Okay, so I'm flipping over here to look at the betting card. Let's remove this. Let's talk about our outright bets. So right now I have Kyle Larson at 5-1. I put 2 units on that. I have William Byron at 13-1. Put 1 unit on that. Ricky Stenhouse at 50-1. Half a unit on that. I have Tyler Reddick to top 5 at plus 130. I have Austin Dillon to top 10 at even money. Put 2 units on both those. I have Austin Dillon over Austin Cindric in the Battle of the Austins. I got 2 units on that at minus 110. I have Stenhouse to top 10 at plus 190. I have Stenhouse to top 3 over at FanDuel. So I put this on the card, Brian. It was 17-1 to top 3. I went back to look at the odds. It's 11-1. So I'm putting 11-1 on my card. It's still a good number, but the 17-1 would have been much, much nicer. Cole Custer to top 10 over at FanDuel plus 270. William Byron to top 3 over at FanDuel plus 260. Once again, that was 320 to plus 320. Now it's plus 260. I just added Byron over Reddick. So I just need Byron to win, Reddick to top 5, and I'll be having all the money in my pocket.
Yeah, that would be a nice weekend for you for sure.
Why don't you run down your betting card and then we can hit our best bets and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, so I'm sticking with Ryan Blaney, 10-1, 1 unit. I joined the William Byron crew this weekend, although he's one of my favorite drivers, so I don't know why I say that. But 12-1, 1 unit. Stenhouse Jr. at 50-1 for half a unit. Ryan Blaney to top 5 was my best bet on the earlier week show. That's 2 units. And then Austin Dillon to top 10. We got that really early in the week, even money, 1 unit. Stenhouse Jr., just like Kyle at FanDuel, plus 190 to top 10. I'm going 2 units on that.
Let's go.
Also, earlier in the week, I got Stenhouse Jr. in a matchup over Chase Briscoe, 1 unit there, minus 105. I did it again. Ryan Blaney over Joey Logano, minus 105. You can't really find it any lower than minus 110 or minus 115 right now for 1 unit, or actually for 2 units. Yes, my distaste for Logano and Keselowski continues. Earlier in the week, I also got Alex Bowman over Kevin Harvick at minus 110 for 1 unit. And then I am also adding the Chase Elliott over Kyle Larson at plus 125 for 1 unit.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do the same. It feels like a good bet, even though I like Kyle Larson to win. Like, weird stuff happens.
It's just too good a value, like you said. Yeah. Like, all it takes is a flat. I mean, we saw it last year with Larson. What was that, Pocono? Yep. Or I forget what track it was, where he blew a tire on the last turn.
Yeah, it was the I think the road course one where they had to come over the little hump, but I'm trying to remember. Yeah. Okay, so what is, if you want to double down on your best bet from the previous show, feel free to do that. If you want to add another one, you can also do that. But tell the people what your best bet for the Pennzoil 400 was, is, and is going to be?
Well, so I'm not dumping the Ryan Blaney top 5, but I'm adding another one, and I've talked about him all week. If you follow me on Twitter, you've seen me tweet about him multiple times. I just told you I bet 2 units on this, but that's Ricky Spin Out Stenhouse Jr. at plus 190 to top 10 as my best bet.
I love it. I'm really hoping we can cash those 50 to 1.
That would be so sick.
Nice. Really, really nice. I think my best bet for the last show was the Battle of the Austins, right?
Yes.
Dylan over Cindric. So I will keep that, but I will also add. Man, what do I want to? You know what? I'm gonna add William. I'm a big William Byron guy this week. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that top 3 over at FanDuel plus 260. I am going to best bet that for today. So, so my ideal finish for tomorrow's race: Ricky Stenhouse wins, William Byron top 3, Tyler Reddick top 5, and then we'll be looking so good come next week. We had DraftKings, we had FanDuel, we had bets, DFS, all that good stuff for you. In the comments below, let us know your best bet for the Pennzoil 400 and your favorite driver sub 9K over on DraftKings. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Look for Brian at the track tomorrow. Follow him on Twitter for all of his stuff. And we'll be back to you next week with more bets, DFS picks, and all of that good stuff. We'll talk to you next time.